Are you constantly seeking approval from others?
Does your worth feel tied to likes, comments, or the praise of others? What if I told you that this search for validation could be the very thing keeping you stuck? It's time to break free. In this episode of InnerPreneur the Pod, we'll dive deep into why we crave external validation and how you can shift into something far more powerful: self-validation and inner confidence. Are you ready to unlock your true potential? Let's begin.
Welcome to another episode of the InnerPreneur, the Pod. I'm your host, Tanya Camille, and today we're diving deep into a topic that holds so many of us back: barriers to self-love. We all hear the phrase, love yourself. But what happens when you want to? Yet something inside keeps telling you that you're not enough. Maybe it's the inner critic, the inner voice, the whispering self-doubts, the need for approval keeping you stuck, or the constant pressure to be perfect. Well, today we're breaking down the hidden roadblocks that prevent us from fully embracing self-love. We'll uncover why we chase validation, how perfectionism keeps us trapped, and most importantly, how to silence the negative voices of self-worth. By the end of this episode, you'll not only recognize the patterns holding you back, but walk away with tools to overcome them. It's time. I say it's time to stop seeking love outside of ourselves and start cultivating it from within. There was a time when I struggled with self-love. Let me give you one of my love scenarios. Looking back, I realized that self-love isn't just about knowing when to walk away. It's about understanding why we stay. I said, looking back, I realized that self-love is not just about when we walk away. It's also understanding why we stayed so long. I was in a relationship that no longer fulfilled me, but I kept convincing myself that leaving wasn't an option. Maybe I was afraid of being alone. Or maybe I thought I could fix something that wasn't already broken. I'm a shero, I can make it all better. But the truth is, when we leave when we're ready. And sometimes that readiness takes longer than we expect. There really is no such thing as staying too long. It's nonsensical. Because at the end of the day, you leave when you're ready. And that is the moment in time that was the right time. So it's important to reframe that thinking. Instead of blaming ourselves for staying too long, we can recognize that every experience teaches us something about ourselves, our self-worth, and our self-love. And that's what we're diving in today: how to recognize barriers that hold us back and how to move forward with self-love. There are 3 barriers that I want to discuss today to self-love. These 3 barriers are often block us from fully embracing and loving ourselves. And the number 1 barrier of self-love is negative self-talk. That inner voice, that inner critic, that negative self-talk, all the things you're telling yourself that aren't true. but more importantly, how to silence it. The inner critic is that voice in your head that tells you that you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you're not smart enough. And all of those things are shaped by past experiences or societal conditioning. And fear, false evidence appearing real. But the good news is you can take control of it. Here's how. First, recognize when the inner voice shows up. Pay attention to the patterns of that negative voice. Ask yourself, whatever you're saying negative for yourself, would I say this to a friend or a loved one? Identify the triggers that bring up those negative thoughts. Is it rejection? Is it fear of failure? Is it perfectionism? Is it social media? Trying to live up to the Joneses? What is it? The second thing is to challenge and reframe those negative thoughts. Instead of saying, I'll never be good enough, say, I'm always growing and improving. I'm always becoming the best version of myself. I'm always stepping outside of my comfort zone because I want to be the best version of myself. I know I'm better than I was yesterday. Replace things like, I always mess up with every mistake is a learning opportunity. Actually, I don't make mistakes. I just make different decisions when something's not going the way I thought it should. Actually, there isn't anything in my mind that is a mistake. It's just a learning opportunity to move forward and get closer to where I belong. When all these negative thoughts come up, take a moment and give yourself some grace. Take a moment to write down some self-compassionate responses to your common negative thoughts. Another thought is to disconnect from that inner voice in your head. And the way to do that is to give your inner voice a name. My inner voice name is Ton. And when I start having those negative thoughts and things, I say, wait a minute, Ton, not today. We're not doing that today. I can get this done. I am worthy and I deserve everything I'm going after. So Tom, please go talk to someone else. And what happens is you disconnect and now you're in the moment and you become aware of your thoughts, which gives you the opportunity to change those thoughts swiftly and quickly so they won't stop you in your tracks. So the number one barrier is negative self-talk. The number two barrier is seeking validation from others. The trap of needing others' approval, permission, or endorsement to feel worthy. Why? Why do we seek others' approval? Well, seeking approval from others seems to be a natural tendency, right? It's a natural human tendency, and it's rooted in our psychology, in our upbringing, and in our social conditioning. But when it becomes a requirement for self-worth, it is very damaging. So let's talk about how we do it and how to break free from it. The first reason is evolutionary psychology. It's in our DNA. Our ancestors had a need to belong, and we have a need to belong. It's just a human need. Humans are wired for connection. Our ancestors survived by being a part of a tribe, and rejection meant danger. Being outcast from a group could mean no food, no shelter, no protection. While society has evolved, our brains still fear rejection as if it's a threat to our survival. Another one is childhood conditioning and external validation. Many of us grew up learning that approval equals love and acceptance. Many of us grew up learning that approval equals love and acceptance. Getting praise for good grades or accomplishments. Feeling valued when we meet family expectations. Receiving love based on performance, not just on being. Receiving love based on performance, not just on being. Not just for being here, for being in existence. And over time, this trains our brain to believe that self-worth comes from external validation rather than from within. The next one about seeking validation is fear of judgment and rejection. Many people fear disapproval because it makes them feel unworthy or not enough. We often adapt our personalities to fit in rather than being our authentic self, embracing who we truly are. Let me say it again. We often adapt our personalities to fit in rather than embracing who we truly are. But the truth is, not everyone will like us, and that's okay. So, if not everyone's going to like us, why would we try to fit in and be something we're not? Which takes a lot of work. Instead of just being who you truly are. So let's look at how to stop seeking external approval. The first thing is to first develop a self-validation. Let me say it again. The first way is to develop self-validation. Meaning to trust yourself enough about any decisions that you're making in life. And being able to be okay with that, whether someone agrees or disagrees. Acknowledge your strengths and your accomplishments without waiting for praise. Trust that you are doing what's right for you in that moment. And if for some reason you start to think and looking for approval, ask yourself, am I doing this for me or for approval? Ask yourself, am I doing this for me or for approval? Practice self-acceptance. I mean radical self-acceptance. Like love yourself as you are, not based on who accepts you, but love yourself as you are. It's important to be okay with you. Because when you're okay with you, other people will be okay with you because you're being your authentic self. And those who aren't meant for you. It's just that simple. So when you feel rejected, reframe it. Every no means that you're getting closer to where you truly belong. Ponder that thought. Every no means you're getting closer to where you truly belong. The third barrier is perfectionism. Let me just start out by saying perfectionism does not exist. Perfectionism is not living in reality. There is no such thing as doing anything perfect. And even when we think something's perfect, somebody else is going to come along and see something else that needs to be tweaked or whatever. Because we never can see everything. So perfect does not exist. It's not living in reality. So striving for perfection leads to constant self-doubt. Striving for perfection leads to constant self-doubt. Perfectionism may seem like a positive trait, but it often leads to self-doubt, anxiety, and inaction. Here's why. Perfectionism sets us up for unrealistic standards. Perfectionists usually set impossibly high standards and expectations for themselves. And then when they fall short, they start that negative self-talk. Instead of celebrating the progress that they've made, they criticize themselves harshly, and they start the cycle all over again. This cycle creates a feeling of never ever being good enough. No matter how much you accomplish, it's never going to be good enough, because everything has to be perfect. And there's no such thing as perfect. There's only progress. There's only knowing in the doing. There's no such thing as perfect. There's only progress. Let me give you something like an example. A person writes a book. They've done all this research and work, but never publishes it because they feel it's not enough. It's not perfect. Therefore, no one can benefit from all the work they put in, and it never reaches the world. And here it is. This is the kicker. How do they determine what's perfect? How are you determining what's perfect? Another trait of perfectionism is fear of failure. It creates analysis paralysis. Now, I know we all know about analysis paralysis. You know, perfectionism often, let me put it this way. Perfectionists often fear making mistakes, so they avoid taking risks or trying new things. Instead of progressing, they stay stuck, waiting for the perfect time, the perfect hour, the perfect minute, the perfect second, when there is no such thing as perfect. So why don't we just start right now and know that whatever doesn't, quote, appear to be perfect will be a learning thing for us, and we'll learn something and we'll know something, and it becomes better and better and better. So being a perfectionist does nothing but continue to help you grow self-doubt, and it starts to make it even harder for you to start. Perfectionism kills self-worth. When self-worth is tied to your performance, it means your value depends on your achievement, which I talked about earlier. We learned that, right? That's a learned behavior. Instead of just being. Our self-worth is not tied to anything but just being here in existence, because we matter just for being here. When you have those way of thinking, you create conditional self-love. I'm only good enough if I succeed. But true self-worth comes from who you are, not what you do. Let me say that again. True self-worth comes from who you are, not what you do. This is a good one. Let me give you an example here. I was just thinking, someone can spend hours perfecting their appearance because they believe their worth is tied to them looking flawless. Yet no amount of effort ever feels, like enough. A hair is out of place. The shirt's not falling perfectly. It's just no way to live. So let's look at how we can break free from perfectionism. Let's embrace progress over perfection. Let's embrace progress over perfection. Done is better than perfect. Oh God, done is better than perfect. Allow mistakes to be lessons. Every mistake is a step toward growth. I like to call mistakes decisions. Because every decision you make teaches you something, whether it's good or bad. And therefore, that information gives you something else to build on and to build on and to build on. Another way to disconnect from perfectionism is to detach self-worth from achievements. You are valuable just as you are. I'm sorry to tell you, but I heard we were all made in the image of God. And based on that premise, that means we're good enough just the way we are, because He makes no mistakes. But it's up to you to know that you're valuable and you're worthy. And when you disconnect from these things that you think make you important and perfect, and realize that you're good enough just the way you are, and you continue to move forward and make progress, to realize that the knowing is in the doing, the learning is in the doing, the becoming is in the doing. Everything you do, every little small win that you make along your course is progress. You need to celebrate those wins. Celebrate your progress and not focus on being perfect, because perfection does not lead to success. Progress over perfection. Remember, progress over perfection. Embrace done over perfect. And if you embrace those two simple thoughts, you'll be amazed at how your confidence will come up, how your worth will come up. Instead of not doing, waiting for the perfect time, minute, or second, and never getting to where you truly want to go. So let's break through from let's have breakthroughs through the self-negative talk, the need for people's permission, approval, and endorsements. Let's break free from perfectionism, because it does not exist. And let's cultivate self-love. Let's shift from self-criticism to grace and self-compassion. And it's a process. It definitely is a process. It's simple, but it's not easy. Let me say it again. It's simple, but it's not easy. So let's recognize our negative self-talk. Let's identify our thoughts that are overly critical and harsh or discouraging. And let's ask ourselves, will we talk like that to our friends, our loved ones? Then we definitely shouldn't be talking like that to ourselves. Let's reframe the narrative and replace self-judgment with understanding, grace, and love. And okay with who you are, where you are at this moment. Instead of saying, I always fail, say, I am learning and growing. I always am doing this wrong. No, I'm always learning and growing. Practice self-kindness. Practice self-love. Treat yourself with the same compassion and grace you offer others. Imagine speaking to your younger self. How would you encourage yourself so that you could be better today? Because all of these things come from our past experiences, our younger self, our inner child. So how would you encourage yourself, that younger person, to know now that you know, to be the best version of yourself and to love yourself, and that you don't need accolades and accomplishments to be worthy? As I said, the breakthroughs are simple, but they're not easy. So can I ask you to take some action and show yourself grace by actively practicing self-care and acknowledging progress rather than focusing on your flaws? Can I ask you to take action and show yourself some grace by actively practicing self-care and acknowledging progress rather than focusing on your flaws. I like to close this out with some simple challenges, some simple things to do. I'm very big on journaling. So the thought is to write a specific self-love barrier that has held you back, whether that be negative self-talk, seeking the approval of others, or being a perfectionist. Reflect on when it started and how it impacted your decisions and what it would feel like to just release it. Reflect on how whatever that is that you're thinking about, that you want to journal about, how it started, how it has impacted your decisions, and what it would feel like to release it. Then write a letter to your future self, committing to self-love and self-acceptance. Let me say it again. Write a letter to your future self, the person you're becoming, committing to self-love and self-acceptance. I'm okay with me. I love me just the way I am. And then every day, I ask you to take action. Choose one self-love action to complete this week that directly challenges your barrier. Whatever it is, constant negative self-talk, perfectionism, seeking the improvement and endorsement of other people, asking for their permission. Do something to change the way you've consistently been living to this point. Take charge of your life. If your barrier is negative self-talk, then practice catching and replacing those negative self-thoughts. Don't even give it a second. Step back and whatever name you've given that voice in your head, yo, young. I'm not today. I have everything I need to do what I need to do. And most importantly, be aware. Be aware why those negative self-thoughts are coming. What is triggering it? Become aware. Because when you're aware of something, you can make a change to it. If it's perfectionism, do something imperfectly. Just make progress and embrace it. Just do something imperfectly. Be great with it and embrace it. And if you're seeking validation, if it's a matter of seeking someone's permission, endorsement, or approval, make a decision just for you without asking anyone else their thoughts, what they think. Just make the decision for you. Have self-trust. Believe whatever it is going to be okay. And I don't need anyone's permission or endorsement or approval for what I want to do, what I feel is right for me. By making these mindset shifts, these simple mindset shifts, and taking action, you're not just thinking about self-love, you're living it. Thank you for tuning into the InnerPreneur podcast. They say if you want to hide something, put it in a book. But I believe if you truly want to hide something, ask someone to look within. The answers, the breakthroughs, and the life you deserve all start from inside you. So keep looking inward, keep growing, keep becoming the best version of yourself. Much love as always. This is Tanya Camille signing off.